Hello, I'm Russell Brand. This is the Trews. It's Fame Friday. We're talking about the world of celebrity and how it relates to more important issues. Today we're talking about Celebrity Big Brother. I'm an expert because I used to be on it. And Katie Price, I'm an expert because I'm a person with an opinion. I'm not an expert. Let's have a look and learn.
It's the driver that takes Harvey is funded by the government. Because he has a driver and like a nurse that sits in the car with him.
Oh. What if you provided that privately? So you've got a driver and someone...
Do you know how expensive that would be?
With the amount you earn, I'd find that tricky when you could afford it yourself.
That Katie Hopkins has been granted the face that she deserves. Like, it's sort of like a face that's pecking into reality with wickedness. A sort of crow face. Yeah! You should be paying for that yourself! Sort of squawking face of evil there. Yeah! I'd like to peck you to death with my opinion! Yeah!
You judge children.
Yes, I really think that if you have a tattoo, you have to wonder about what sort of future you've got ahead of you. You know, to call yourself plus size is simply a euphemism for being fat, and who wants to be fat?
I mean, you could argue with Katie Hopkins, but in a way, the punishment has already been administered. The punishment for being Katie Hopkins is being Katie Hopkins. Now, the Katie Price issue is an interesting one because superficially it appears to be about merit. Why should Katie Price, a rich person, receive any state benefit for her disabled son? She should be paying for it herself. But what this actually is a sort of a crack in the argument through which anti-state and sort of compassion arguments can be leveraged, because Katie Price provides a portal that you can thrust hatred down or peck it in with your evil Hopkins beak of hate.
Yeah, but I just do it that way, statementing. It's like I pay my taxes, so if I can do a statement, I will. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. See, the broader argument is, should we help one another? That's the broader argument. Do we have a society where people help one another? No! We're all individuals in the Thunderdome of life. If you're rich, you pay for yourself. If you're poor, you also pay for yourself.
I've had over 2,000 comments on our Facebook page on this one. It's certainly divided opinion. So a lot of people absolutely agree with Katie Hopkins. So let's hear a few of them and see what we think. Sherelle, I'm actually in agreement with Katie Hopkins on this one. KTP has the option and the choice to pay for it herself. The rest of us don't.
A few issues are highlighted by this. The fact that there are not schools local where Katie Price lives, because special needs schools are being abundantly closed down. And it's part of a culture of withdrawing aid and assistance to people that are most vulnerable. And if you can see, it's interesting because even though this is like pop cultural nonsense, Katie Price, a famous pop cultural figure, aka Jordan, who's come to came at us through tabloids, then through I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here, now Big Brother. But in this instance, she represents a really important issue. And similarly, Katie Hopkins swooped down at us through The Apprentice as evil crow woman. I never see her on the television unless she's saying something horrible about us. I've never heard her say anything nice about anyone. I've never heard her go, do you know what? Like, we're all people. Let's just put arm around each other. She's always, I'd like to get my talons into the... They shouldn't be here. Ah! She's like Cadbury's parrot. So instead of advertising chocolate, advertising hatred. Mr. Cadbury!
It's Mr. Cadbury's parrot.
There's a lovely article by a person called Frances Ryan in The Guardian. She makes loads of brilliant points that I'd just like to read to you, because they're spot on if you ask me, that this issue highlights a deeper issue. It says here, look away from Price's fame and millions, and the arguments that are being levelled against her are exactly the same ones that are used against people that don't have fame or millions. We decided somewhere around the time that we cut 28 billion of support from disabled people and started revelling in propaganda such as Benefit Street, that anyone using state support deserves suspicion and judgment. Yeah, there was a story in The Sun where a fella called Peter Rolfe is labelled a scrounger. He gets a new 5-bedroom house. His benefits top 46 grand a year. But we see him, he's just in some council house. He's a bloke with a walking stick. He looks like a vulnerable sort of Uncle Albert portly fella. That newspaper and that headline would have been signed off by Rupert Murdoch, who lobbies governments to avoid taxes. Constantly our attention is turned. And why there's such vehemence and willingness to have this argument about Katie Price is, as this woman Frances Ryan articulates beautifully, is it provides an opportunity to advance an argument that they want to make. We live in a climate where the coalition are slashing benefits constantly, where where we're invited to look with suspicion at anyone who's different. And as she says, that Katie Price is a working class single mum of a disabled mixed race child who we can legitimately attack. And that's what this excitement is about. Remember last week when we talked about American Sniper? Sometimes these cultural events provide an opportunity to vent emotions that are there. Like, yeah, well, actually, I don't like Iraqis. Ah, good, I can let that go. Now, this similarly provides an opportunity to express pent-up frustration and anger. Pent-up frustration and anger that would be better directed at corrupt politicians and businessmen and people that are tyrannising us for their own advantage. Katie Price isn't the problem. She goes on to say that universal benefits matter, defend the rights of mothers of disabled children, such as Price, to get help, and it reinforces the rights of everyone else. That's how society works. Strengthen one pillar and the other gets bolder. Weaken one and it won't be long before they all start to crumble. You can see what's happening here. It starts to, like, whether it's the front page of the Sun with that guy, oh, he's on benefits, he's having a laugh, or Katie Price, oh, she's on benefits even though she's rich. Next time someone's on the TV going, we're cutting benefits, you go, good! I've got an opinion on benefits that I've had smashed into my mind from Katie Hopkins' beak of hate.
There are loads and loads of these. Christine, a complete joke. Hannah, I agree with Katie Hopkins. Patricia, I think he should pay. Beverly says, I think it's outrageous. She has enough money to pay for it herself. My daughter has to pay towards the transport to get her autistic son to college. She also had to pay when he was at school. If he didn't have autism, he would have gone to local school or college, which wouldn't have cost him anything.
Talking about means-tested benefits is counterproductive, because that will be what's leveled up. We should have means-tested benefits. You'll start to hear that phrase.
I totally understand it's a perfectly legitimate debate to be had about where you start introducing means testing or not.
Like they're talking about cutting benefits for 18 to 23-year-olds. We're going to have means tested, test their mean. It's just about being mean. You can't chip away at universal rights like this, because what you end up with is an atomised society where people are consistently turned against one another. This woman says it's the beginning of a decision that says benefits are not an entitlement but something up for debate that can be chipped away at until they completely disappear. That is the long-term intention of the people that espouse this mentality.
Well, I'd be pretty reluctant to say on the facts of this individual case, we therefore throw out the idea of universally treating all children with disabilities with the same kind of compassion and support.
I like Nick Clegg. I met Nick Clegg. He's a nice person, but he got waylaid and railroaded into a terrible government and a terrible coalition and a terrible decision, and he's wanked all his collateral away, and I don't know, it's hard for him to get it back because he's part of the government that have made these decisions. Bosses have been forced to find $5 billion in the NHS despite greater pressure on services, loads of cuts there. NHS staff are suffering work-related stress, soared up 40%, 10,000 hospital beds have been axed since the last election, all decisions that Nick Clegg participated in. Disabled people that aren't part of a rich family have been hit by up to 6 different welfare cuts. Their independent living fund has been lost, and you should support, in fact, disabled workers. Here are some links that you can support. Returning once more to that article, individuals together make up a society. We each pay in, whether that's income tax on £1 million earning or VAT on fags, and we all get something out. That means we are all citizens of equal status and value. What Katie Price is being used as here is a kind of a crack in one of those pillars of a supportive state and a general, I suppose, an edifice of compassion which can contain us all. And old Katie Hopkins is using her titanium beak to hack away, to extend this metaphor far beyond what it can legitimately be expected to take.
Give me a shout.
Well, that was close because it was about my kids. No, that was about the kids, so it was a little bit close.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh my God.
And it's like, I don't have to explain to anyone what education and what I do with my kids. You're not a politician, so I'd have this conversation with a politician.
What's being offered is a moot argument. Obviously, we should be compassionate towards people with disabilities. We should offer them any support that's possible. We shouldn't live in a culture of judgment. We shouldn't be looking for ways to distinguish ourselves from one another and hate one another. So, of this battle between the two reality TV Katies, one of them who seems to think she's far, far better than the others for some imaginary reason, I come down very strongly on the side of dear Katie Price and on the side of compassion in general. That is some true news. Subscribe here, subscribe here.
Nose is a tool that is abused to fool you and to leave you scared and confused. Trews is like the nose. If the nose was true, I want some trews. Let's have some trews.